So I grew up in Wales, Tredegar, Wales, which is a little small town in the valleys. And my stepfather was a car dealer who owns Central Cars in Eberville, and he still actually owns Central Cars in Eberville. So if you'd like to buy a cheap used car, I just pop down and say hello. So we grew up in the car trade, and we basically, my first car I had that was mine, I was 10, and we had a 1959 Ford 100e Ford Poplar, 3-speed. So he taught me how to drive that at 10, which was a massive mistake. Don't tell kids at 10 years old how to drive cars because they want to drive cars. So I used to go up the garage. We used to work up in Tredegar town. He had a garage, and we would go up there, and I would mess around with the bangers, the banger section we used to call it. So this was back in the sort of 80s, and car dealers at that time were notorious for having an interest in, if you ever seen the film Used Cars, it's like a documentary. Like, it's like that. It really was. So I sold bangers as a kid, as a child. I grew up selling bangers, and that's what we did. I sold cheap, rough cars that were trade-ins. And everyone was like, okay, why is a kid selling? Nobody even questioned me. No one even questioned why a child was selling cars to them. That was what I did. And my old man would give me extra pocket money for selling cars, and that's what we did. We had a little desk in the office, and it was a proper little car lot. So I think my first car, the first car was a Ford Pop 100e. And I used to drive it back and forth the driveway, clean it. I loved it. It was old. It was like strange, and I was a child, so it was great. And they used to take me to drive it up the local quarry. So I'd go and drive it up through the quarries and things like that. And all hideously illegal, but like just a lot of fun. Back in those days, you'd never get away with it now. It's like the Child Protection Society would get called immediately if you were like driving a car at 10, or we had mopeds, and like I'd ride those around the backs of the houses. And I'd go visit my friends on the moped. They bought me a moped, like a little 50cc bike. And I would take that to visit my friends all the way, miles away. And that was like my first taste of freedom. I was like, wow, I can go places. I had a little basket on the front of it, throw my stuff in it, we'd go camping for the weekend. I'd take my little moped. Anyway, he had a car dealership, so I had that car. Then I had a Morris Marina with a pink fur interior and all jacked up at the rear end. It was awful. Sorry about Morris Marinas. I'll talk more about those. I love them because of my first few cars with them. Then I had a Ford Anglia, which had a Ford Crossflow motor put into it from a 600E Cortina. So that was quite quick. And it was matte black, and it was exactly the same as Vivian's from the Young Ones, if you ever saw that. That was really it. I had a Beetle. This is all before I was even legal to drive. Like, way before it was legal to drive. Land Rovers, I had those. I bought a Land Rover one weekend with my pocket money. Turned up back at my parents' house and said, yeah, I bought a Land Rover. They're like, we got to go and pick it up. They loved that kind of thing. My parents are kind of posh-ish. And like for Wales, for sure. We're at least upper middle class. And I would turn up with these hopefully awful cars on their driveway. I remember they used to make me park them down the road. The hearse was a real problem. That was definitely something they didn't want me to buy. I bought it from the car auctions. It was cheap. I mean, it's a hearse and a big engine. Low mileage. Never raced or rallied till I had it. Then did burnouts in it and things, bad things. The police told me I should sell it, which I did. But basically, I would go to car auctions. I would go out and I would start buying cars as I got older. It just started in me a thing that I couldn't stop. I mean, when I was a kid, before I could buy cars, I would turn around and I would go and visit cars. Everybody asked me the question, how many cars have I ever owned? And I literally have no idea. But we are talking realistically, when I was a kid, I counted them. When I was 17, I'd owned 100 cars. I used to buy cars, use them for a week, and then throw them away. Like, I bought some for wrecking. I mean, I lost count at about 1,000-ish. I imagine a couple of thousand cars maybe. I had 120 cars at Christmas. I mean, I really buy cars. Like, some people buy cars and they go, oh, well, you know, I've had a lot of cars. How many cars have you had? I'm like, I don't know, thousands. And they're like, no, really, how many cars have you had? I'm like, yeah, thousands. And they're like, I don't believe you. But after you know me for a month or two, you know it. I've got cars in different countries. I've got cars I've never seen. I've got cars that I bought everywhere. I went on eBay and I'd be like, oh, bing, buy that, thank you. And I'd buy something in Germany, or I'd buy something anywhere. America is my favorite, and I would park them in driveways and people's houses. I bought a yard. I had 3 warehouses full of cars at one point in time. That was the worst it's ever been. I just didn't even know what I owned anymore. I was starting to I used to walk outside with keys in my hand. I'd be like, which car am I in? What car am I driving? What's legal is the question. You look and you think, I think this one's got gas in it. And I'll drive anything. I don't care. If it's got gas in it, that would be it. I once drove a puke green Skoda because it had a full tank of gas for a week. I worked in a reasonably exotic car dealership, and we took in a Skoda, which everybody laughed at, and I drove it for a week because it had a full tank of gas. Oh, and it had a rear engine. So it did drive like a poor man's 911. As in, it tried to kill you all the time, unless you keep your foot flat on the floor going through corners. Same sort of swing axle suspension. Anybody who's ever driven a 911 will tell you that. Everybody loves 911s. It's like the greatest driving experience of all time because it tries to kill you. It's like those crazy women, you have a relationship with and they want to kill you. They're always the best ones. And 911s are exactly the same. The second you take your attention off it, it'll stab you before breakfast. Of all the 2,000 cars I've owned, people go like, oh, I don't even know it's 2,000 cars. I've got no idea how many cars I've owned. Like, literally no idea. But the average gross value would be somewhere between $250 and $500. Somewhere around that. I mean, I once had a conversation with Ed that went along like he said, well, if you sold all your cars, you could easily... He had a Porsche. I liked it. It was black, black leather interior. I said, oh, I quite fancy this, Ed. And Ed said, well, why didn't you buy it? I really thought about it. I could have bought it. He said, well, you just need to sell all your car collection. I thought, my God, that'll take a few months. But it would have just about paid for it. But there were so many cars that they would have paid for it. It wasn't the case of like I could sell 4 cars and buy it. It was just I'd have to sell 50 or something. So the average value, $500. Anybody who tells you you cannot buy a car with pocket change is lying. I bought a car in a pub one night and I forgot about it. I literally bought a car in a pub with a guy in the pub, and it was my regular pub. People in the UK, you'll know what I mean by regular pubs. So I walked in, and this guy said, are you going to take that Cortina from around the back? And I'm like, what are you talking about? He said, you bought a Cortina in here a couple of weeks ago. I was like, really? He's like, yeah, you were drunk. You bought the keys to be in the bar. He told me I could move it. I don't want to move that piece of crap. It's at the back car park. And sure enough, I walked in the back car park. The ugliest car in the car park was an old Mark IV Ford Cortina, covered in slime where I'd left it there for the past month or two. And I bought it for my pocket change, literally. And it wouldn't be the first pocket change car I ever bought. I once woke up in the morning and there used to be a scrapyard that's called Bacon's. And Bacon's scrapyard, I was a regular. In fact, I first started my first job there when I was 16. So anyway, I'd been out day drinking. This is another story, which is always the same with me. I'd been out day drinking. I had a few beers. It had gone into the evening. We'd picked up one of my friends from the yard. And then I'd gone out drinking for the rest of the evening. And I really used to go out and have a good evening. So I woke up in the morning, I had stuff in my pockets. I'm like, I was asleep on my bed, wearing all my clothes. My hand in my pocket, I pull out a receipt, and there's a receipt. The receipt says, and crumple it, it's Bacon's Auto Services, Ashwick, and on it says, receipt for purchase, 1 Mercedes limousine, faded Splendor, £100. And I had bought, drunk, it was still there. I'd driven it drunk, just for you to know that. Diesel 1976 Mercedes limousine that had zero hope of going ever again in a million years. Like, even the hand of God could not have restored that car. It was the worst car ever. And I'd walked into the yard, said something along the lines of, I'm going to buy that. My mate had gone, yeah, you can buy it if you want. We paid 40 quid for it. What are you going to pay? 100 quid. And he was like, yep, fine. And I was like, faded Splendor. And he wrote down the receipt. And that's what I bought. I'm sure I've forgotten cars. I'm sorry. If I own a car that is in your driveway, just call me now and I'll come and pick it up from 5 years ago or whatever. The most expensive car. Back in the early 90s, we bought a Mercedes 190E Sportline. And that was with my stepdad. And that was I went and bought that. I had that as my company car for a while. In fact, we had it for about 10 years. Brilliant car. Never missed a beat. Was fantastic. We put different sets of wheels on it to make it look good. It was black, but it was a good car. I really liked the 190. But when I was 17, I had the joy of, we bought a red Porsche 944. Number plate lot 944Y. I really hope that car still exists because I had a ball in it. We bought it with a blown head gasket because Porsche 944s, they do head gaskets. It was guards red. It was really cool. And I told my girlfriend at the time, it was brand new. But in fact, it was 1983. I don't think we were in 1990 something by then, but it was a pretty cool looking car. And I remember driving it around South Wales thinking I was the kid. People in my town talked about it. Like, they were literally like, there's a man driving a Porsche in town. I would walk miles to watch an exotic car. Like, if somebody said there is I thought a Jaguar XJS was like the most exotic thing we'd ever see in my little town. So when I bought the 944, it was my old man's. I used to run around in that and it was great. But everything I earned, every penny I've ever earned, has gone into cars.
When you get a ticket, no matter where it happens, it's more important than ever to fight every one. And the perfect partner in that fight is the Ticket Clinic. When you get a ticket, you're facing costly insurance premium increases, points on your license, fines, risk of suspension, jail time, and they can help you avoid all of that. They've got offices in Florida and in California, but they can help you fight a ticket through their network of attorneys no matter where in the United States you get one. You can text a picture of your ticket to 305-305, or you can check them out now at the link in the description below. So thank them for their support of VINwiki, of CarTrek, and fight your ticket with the Ticket Clinic.